Recent visitors to Monticello, the estate he designed, where his library is, I've been there, it's a beautiful thing to see, take your kids to, have noticed that the whole tone of how Thomas Jefferson is described has changed. And it's overwhelmingly negative. You go to visit the legacy of Thomas Jefferson and you learn about what a terrible person Thomas Jefferson was. Here's a sign that greets visitors at Monticello when you arrive. It says, "Is all men are created equal being lived up to in our own country today? When will we know when it is?" And here's a quote from a visitor. William Bales of Chester, Virginia, wrote in an online review about visiting Monticello. Half of the comments on Jefferson were critical. Even my 11-year-old daughter noticed the bias. So, guys, they're not just doing it in our classrooms and our textbooks. They're doing it in the places we visit and how they describe our founders.
Yeah, if you go to the gift store, and by the way, it's not limited to Montpelier. I visited many of these homes. I did a series for Fox Nation on America's First Ladies, and so I went to these homes, and that is definitely what I picked up from all of this, that there is a reorienting, reconstructing of the history to basically make sure that the idea that they had slaves is on the same level as what they did for our country, which is interesting because there were slaves, in the Middle East. There's slaves across, human history. I get that. It's a terrible history. We should talk about it. But we should not feel guilty or ashamed of our leaders when we go and visit the people who brought us the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. You leave feeling that way. By the way, Joey, before you go, when you go to the gift stores, you will find prominently displayed Ibram Kendi and Tisha Coates. All of their books on anti-racism are on display there.
Yeah, it's guilt forthright. Listen, if you go to Monticello, if you go to Mount Vernon, you can't visit those places without seeing where the slaves lived and the work they had to do and the impact they had. These were great men as far as their ideas go, but they were able to build this on the backs of slaves, and we honor that, and we talk about that. That's different than rewriting the importance of Jefferson, the importance of Washington, or whoever it may be, and why have Monticello at all if you're only going to use it for grievance?
Yeah.
Celebrate the little part of these mostly men that was exceptionally good, and understand that none of them were perfect. And I tell you what, none of their leaders are perfect. I mean, you go down the line of any of our, and so
good point.
Socialists.
But we do have a statement from Jen Lyon, a Monticello spokesperson, says our goal is to present an honest, inclusive history of Monticello in all aspects, as well as Jefferson's contributions to the founding of the country. And that's all good and well, but if you go there to take a tour and all they tell you is how terrible this person is, people are going to quit taking tours.
You come away thinking how terrible this country is. Pete, one of the things about your book that I love is that you go back and you look at the source of where's all this coming from. The boards of these, living museums, if you will, the homes of these presidents are being populated. This is a very diabolical plan on the part of the left. So what they've done is they've taken their donors on the left, and they've populated the boards of these estates with leftists. And so you have Rubenstein, a private equity billionaire from the Carter administration, who, by the way, has pledged extensive investments into China. So this is a way to deflect, look at all this money I gave, and I'm on board with 1619, and I'm telling the true history of America and its terribleness and enslavement of people and how it's just not perfect. Don't look over here at all the money I'm making in China that actually has real life slaves in, with the Uyghurs.
Don't look over here at all the amazing things that Thomas Jefferson unleashed as well for generations of people. And the beautiful words he wrote, even if he was a flawed person himself. You read that statement, Joey. Inclusive history of Monticello. It's always about inclusivity. It's the buzzword they use. And we fall into the trap because good, earnest historians who take care of Monticello sit there and they go, oh, you're right. You know what? We haven't included enough about the fact that he was a slave owner. So let's include more of that. And then the ideologues come in with their money and say, let's make it all about that. Yeah. And then pretty soon, good intentions of earnest historians become an agenda that 1776 was no good, and we should talk all about 1619. And then you get kids coming through thinking Thomas Jefferson was a bad guy. And we all understand the flaws. Let's talk about the flaws. We get accused of wanting to whitewash or not talk about that. We will talk about that. We know that. That's a real deal. But making it about America being an evil place is when you get into the realm of a cultural revolution, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. These boards have been taken over by leftists, and we're not paying attention.
Yeah, while we were sleeping. And you don't just walk away thinking that Thomas Jefferson's bad. You also think America's bad by default.
Right.
All right, well, still ahead. Education is top of mind for moms around the country.